AM 1170. The Answer.
Welcome back. This is Rise Up Radio, sdriseup.com, and we are so excited to just dig into a story.
We all have a story, and we all have experiences.
And I think today we're going to get to dig into a story that had a dark place that became a light to many, many, many people. And I just want to sit in that for a second. And we can all have that place, and we've all probably been in places that aren't right. It's just not right.
I think we've all had our own, if not several, times where you've really questioned things, questioned your value in your life and yourself. What we're about to dig into is one person's journey through that valley and how they've kind of risen up and the tremendous impact that he's making by sharing that story and empowering others.
James Beck spent a decade writing a nonfiction book, Hey Dad, Remember Me. It follows a relational journey of father and son, describing how he broke the pattern of generational dysfunction and cycle of abuse and then repatterned his mind through service. James was a suicidal child that transformed into the happiest adult that he knows. In order to test his theories, James gave everything away, all his possessions, and traveled across America serving and just being a part of a movement, a pay it forward movement. James Beck, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to dig into this. So how did even coming to writing a book, how did you get to that place?
Well, I was a C English student. It was the one thing I hated more than anything, and it was my greatest insecurity because growing up, my father always told me I was worthless, and I felt it. So how could I put something on paper that had any value? But then when I was a child, when I was 11, it reached a critical mass between my father and I tried to take my life. My dad was a gun collector, and I played Russian roulette. Fortunately, someone drove down the driveway and kind of broke that dark trance that you put yourself into when you have PTSD, whether it be from battle or abuse as a child. And someone broke that trance, and so then I changed, and I thought, okay, I can do this later. I told my dad about the suicide attempt, and he realized that he was destroying me in the same way that he was destroyed as a child. And he promised that he would spend the rest of his life making it up to me. A few months later, he came up with the idea that he would serve me. And he said, hey, what can I do for you? Just because he didn't know what else to do, and who better to ask than me. And then a week later, he said, hey, how did I do this week? Give me a grade, A, B, C, D, F. And so this little child that had no emotional self-worth was then valued, and his opinion and what was going on inside of him was changing the greatest entity in his life, because we usually symbolize God like our father, and it's like the biggest man is now caring about me. And it made me transition from feeling worthless to eventually feeling priceless. I wanted to share that with others because so many other people around feel worthless and feel hopeless, and even damaged kids, they don't have hope to even change it. So that's where it came from.
And the book was kind of did that come before or after the journey across the United States?
The book was before the journey. I was asked to speak with my father and I, and they're like, hey, you and your dad always got along, share your secrets. And we were like, oh, you have no idea what actually took place in our house. I grew up in a foster home. My parents took in foster kids, so I'm not a foster child. But street kids, and there was just a lot of suicide attempts every other month just by the nature of the trauma these kids had went through. And then my own journey. And anyway, afterwards, it was at a church that we spoke. There was about 1,000 people, and afterwards, like 700 people lined up. And they're like, how did you do it? And we were shocked because all these people we knew, we thought they had perfect lives. And we're like, oh my gosh, we believed your lie like you believed ours. And the first person that came up to me said, James, how did you do it? And I didn't know what to say or what to tell her, because maybe things that worked for me wouldn't work for her. And how do you sum up 10 years of work in a conversation? And so she said, promise me you'll write it down. So I promised her. 2 years later, moved to LA. And I really, if I was a better at English, I would have done it quicker. And I just decided hey, the best book I can write in 10 years, it'll be what it'll be. So that's where the book came from. And then at the end of the book ends where my journey around the country begins, because I had to test the philosophies and theories that I wrote about and say, am I just brilliant in the bedroom, or does this stuff really work? And I had to test it in the coolest, biggest way I could imagine. And that's with Surf Bliss Journey, my journey around the country.
All right, so now let's dig into that. So a Surf Bliss Journey. Let's just even dig into that compound. What does that mean to you? What is Surf Bliss?
Surf Bliss, first of all, it's SERF, as in feudal system, medieval servants serving the landowners. It's how people got by in ancient times by giving more than they took. Even though they were taken advantage of, you would always be able to survive. And bliss is what you get after you give love. So it's love through service. First of all, I was thinking, what's the greatest thing I can test? And I wanted to test that ancient way of existing. Is it possible to thrive in modern society by living in a constant state of giving? And so that's why I gave everything away. And I went around the country. On state 4, I had $120 to my name. Now, before this, I was a managing partner of a post-surgical recovery facility in Beverly Hills. I had nice stuff. So it wasn't like I gave away a bunch of garbage. It was like, it wasn't cinder block furniture. It was like art imported from the Far East and nice flat screen TVs. What I realized as I gave everything away, these psychological hooks of all my possessions that owned me, that gave me a false sense of pride, were coming out, and it was freeing me as a man. And to have a living funeral to where you're in perfect health and you're removed of all these things that are holding you back, it was euphoric. Anyway, I know I totally derailed the question, but
no, that's I think that's the perfect answer to Surf Bliss right there. If you're listening to this right now, what hook do you have in you right now that shouldn't be there? What thing is holding you back? What part of your own self is holding you back from being the greatest person that you could be? And I think that's probably part of that journey of giving everything away was holding you back.
The key moment, December 1st. 2010. Just got out of the shower, so standing naked in front of my bathroom mirror to where it's just you and yourself. And I was looking at myself, kind of chewing myself out, saying, what have you ever done, James? What have you ever done that's great? Yeah, you have a few wins here or there, but you've never contributed greatly to the world. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do the greatest, the coolest thing I could imagine, and it's so cool, I haven't imagined it yet. And that's where I began. So I would never do anything from that point forward that I already constructed, so I could create a new self, become a new person to test this mental repatterning. And a lot of times when I didn't know what to do, so going around the country, serving a family in each state for 3 days, why 3 days? I literally looked up a quote from Benjamin Franklin that says, visitors like fish go bad after 3 days. And I was like, okay, 3 days it is. So it was all borrowing from people that I respected, whether they were alive or whether it was fiction, like Yoda saying, do or do not. There's no try.
When you're serving these people, like what does that look like?
I would show up and say, you have 3 days. I am a capable, competent, willing, and able human being that will work my butt off for you. Here's my time. I'll do anything you want as long as I can show it to my mom on YouTube, which covers a lot of ground.
Okay. So, give us some examples, maybe a couple stories like...
Name a state.
Massachusetts, my home state.
Massachusetts, I served the teacher of the year for Harvard University, and her friends were recovering from Hurricane Irene. And so I grew up on a farm, so I know how to use a chainsaw. So I whipped up the chainsaw and did a lot of manual labor for a bunch of smart people.
Wow.
North Dakota.
North Dakota, the guy was a mechanical engineer for John Deere, and that guy was great. He was like, let me get this straight. Hollywood, you're going to help me. And I was like, yeah, but I grew up on a farm, dude. Like, I know how to work. I didn't say it like that, but... And he goes, all right, I got a bay window for my basement. Take it out, or a little culvert. You got to dig that out because it's leaking.
An egress window, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you're in real estate. You know this stuff. I don't even know what it's called.
I grew up on a farm.
And so I said, well, hey, you got a post hole digger? And he's like, what? I go, you got a post hole digger? And I was like, yeah, if you give me a shovel, it's going to take me all day. But a post hole, boom, pop it out in an hour or two. Anyway, after that, I'm also a massage therapist. I was a massage therapist for American Gladiators and The Biggest Loser, so I've studied it all over the world. and their child.
This guy's amazing.
Thanks.
Okay, keep going on, because I have a couple more states in mind.
Their child had a muscle disorder called dystonia, where every time you touch the skin, it like cramps the skin. So when you look at them, they're kind of wiggling all over, but they're in extreme pain. Anyway, she had some challenges where she was in Special Olympics and was having difficulty walking and running. And being able to use my skill to serve that family in a way that they couldn't find someone that could do what I could do. And this guy that when I first walked in to his house, he was like, "Who are you and why are you here?" And he was irritated at his wife for letting me in. And at the end, he said, "You know what, James? You have a plate at my table and a bed in my house anytime you want." And so that's a transformation that I experienced over and over. The biggest state was Ohio. A lady asked me, "Hey, can you take my sons fishing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. I know how to fish. I mean, that's a lot better than digging a ditch." and then I get there and I'm like, why you want me to do this? And he's like, "Well, you're going to fulfill a promise that their father didn't fulfill." And I was like, "Well, why not?" And he's like, "Well, he was a soldier that came back from Afghanistan and committed suicide before he ever fulfilled that promise. So I want you to fulfill that promise for my late husband." And like, when you look at it, did I serve them? Well, I just took boys fishing. But yet that simple act was so transformative that she now hosts a 5K that brings awareness to PTSD and is serving people around in her community. So the smallest things, you don't know how it's going to impact someone else. You just got to do it, give it away, see what happens.
I'm like awestruck right now. You are one of the most selfless human beings I've ever met in my life.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like, your selflessness and your generosity is inspiring. Like, I'm moved.
Thank you.
And I think that's what we talked about when we started this show. This is our show before Thanksgiving. And to stop for a second, and I appreciate those words, thank you. When's the last time that you did something that required someone to say thank you? We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with James Beck and share more of his stories and just dig into how did this happen? What is it that has to happen to you that you can be elevated to this level? And I don't think it's a big thing. Stay tuned. This is Rise Up Radio, SDRiseUp.com.
AM 1170, The Answer. AM 1170, The Answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Gladiator Arena in Los Angeles, California, here are your American Gladiators.
Welcome back. This is Rise Up Radio. Does that feel common to you, James?
Yeah, going home, man. It's been a long time since I was working at the Gladiators.
I wanted to be the Eliminator so bad as a kid. Like that was been like the ultimate for me. I love the Eliminator.
You know, they actually to actually do the event?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to do that as a kid so bad I would have gotten destroyed, but
you know, if we were friends about 7 years ago, I could have gotten you on the thing.
All right, if you missed the first part of this, we're in studio with James Beck, and just if you didn't hear the first part, you have to go to our website, SD Rise Up, and just dig into his story or get a hold of his book, Hey Dad, Remember Me. That kind of is the prelude to getting to the point where the darkest hour. I've been there. I think we've all had those places that can be the catalyst. Doesn't have to be, but can be the catalyst to be able to see the light. We got to share a couple of states. So we traveled the U.S., serving people for 3 days in each state. Took about a year.
Exactly a year.
Exactly a year. And James, you said an astounding thing. You want to keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a project for a year. It wasn't a project to check it off the list. It's a process. What it sounds to me like is a process of life.
It is the most euphoric feeling I've ever had, being able to go into someone's life and give them 3 days. Because a lot of times in our week, where does our time go? What does it matter? We're always wondering about meaning and purpose. But when you can go back through a year and point to a face and a name and a Facebook account, and they will tell you, oh my gosh, you changed my life. You changed my life. And what did I do? I did things that anyone could do. I'm not anything more than anyone else out there.
digging post holes to fix a window, going fishing, simple things. And I think that you've also kind of teach and have developed, maybe or borrowed, because I think you've mentioned that before, borrowed a philosophy of the can I, should I, will I, did I. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Can I, should I, will I, did I? Those are the 4 questions that every person needs to ask themselves before they take action and as they pivot and adjust when they get new information. The first question, can I, that's a child's question. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I? But then there's also later on as adults, can I start a business? Can I rob a bank? Can I is actually a waste of time because the answer is always yes. You can do good, you can do bad. The question actually is, how can I? What are the steps that are taken? So once once you've developed enough personal security, then you go to the next question and saying, okay, I know how it can be done, but should I? If everyone around me was watching what I was doing, would I be proud of myself if they saw my actions? And if the answer is yes, then the answer is yes, I should do this. Then will I? Do I have the staying power? Can I continue it? Can I go to the end? Because if you're not going to finish something, you're just going to waste time. And time is a priceless resource, and we don't know how much we have of it. So you have to answer, can I go to the end? And so that was the Surf Bliss journey, 1 year around the country. I thought, you know what? Anyone can handle anything for a year. And I pushed myself full course press for 1 year. Now, April Fool's Day, that's my birthday. I'm an April Fool's baby.
Mine's March 29th, a couple days before you. But tell us, what did that look like logistically?
Logistically, going around the country?
Well, let's finish with the did I.
Well, will I is willpower. Did I is you looking back and asking yourself, honestly, did I do this? Was it accomplished? That's more reflection of, okay, now the next move and being honest with yourself. Like, did this accomplish anything? Was it, and so then you can learn the lessons and then start all over with the next set of directions that you're going to take yourself on. But to get to you, logistics, I was driving up the coast, and Oregon was my first state, and I didn't know who I was going to serve in Oregon, just that their zip code had to be in that state.
Okay.
Probably every 5 to 7 states, I would know someone, I would have a friend. I call it tent poling it, because maybe I had to stay for a few extra days and relax and maybe edit some videos and put out, share with people what I'm actually doing. But I wanted to keep the process organic and fluid. So I would often not know who I was going to serve in the next state. I would just throw it out on Facebook. If I wanted to meet someone that I had absolutely no connection with, I would put it out on couchsurfing.org. I don't know if you know what that site is.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so I had let people stay on my couch in LA, but I'd never actually stayed on anyone else's. So I had a good reputation on that website. So I was vetted. So then they came to me and looking at my profile, oh, wow. I'd let you stay on my couch for free. Yeah, you can help me out. So the bar, people think it was very impossible to do, but with a lot of the technology we have nowadays, it's actually very simple and easy to do.
And you completed all 50 states in 12 months?
I went to all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii, in 12 months. And state 4 had $120 with no sponsors, savings, or financial safety net.
By state 4?
On state 4, yeah, I had all these plans and contingency plans and all this, what I thought was going to work out, and basically everything fell apart. And I looked at my bank account in state 4, and I was like, oh, crap, how am I going to do this? And it was this great moment because I had to ask myself, do you really believe? Do you really believe people are good? Do you really believe that living in a constant state of giving is viable in modern society? Because if people aren't good, this won't work. And if people are good, then you got a shot, but you got to go the distance. And so that was where will I came in. Will I go the distance? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And it was at that moment, I actually had a friend that waved a job offer at a Storage Wars. I don't know, the TV show. Yeah. Like, hey, come produce with me at Storage Wars. And I was like, okay, either I go back and take the sure thing or I launch out on my own and do what I truly believe.
Wow. Well, we got to dig into one more thing.
All right, so if you're listening to this, I just want to throw this out there, and you want to be served, or you know someone that should be served, they can go on your website?
Yeah, givebeck.com. So my last name is Beck, B-E-C-K.
Givebeck.com. Another thing that we'd just like to dig into is if you're serving people in a great way, let James know. Let us know as well.
And that's why I want to offer something to your listeners. I want to serve 3 of your listeners, and I will have no control over who I serve. You will have control over who I serve. So
wow.
if anyone submits something to my website, there is Join Be Good. So come, givebeck.com, put your information in there. I will forward everything to the team and whoever you decide, because I don't want to control it. I want to have it to where I just have a name and an address and show up and say, hey, how can I help you? For 3 days, I will serve you better than you've ever been served. And you will be happier and more fulfilled as a result of it. And then anything I give you, I ask you to do double for other people. So just pay it forward.
We would love to help facilitate that. If you're a business, if you're a person that's serving, if you're an organization, please get a hold of James.
And if you are a business, one of the things that I'm doing just to give good in the world is I have a lot of friends on the Navajo Nation. That's one of the places I served on my journey. And they don't have coats, and it's cold. And it's like, that's ridiculous. You don't have coats. My buddy is the top medicine man for the Navajo High Council. It's a crazy reason why that all happened. But yeah, I just want to bring coats. I feel like here in California, we're dealing with fashion and they're dealing with freezing. If you want to be a part of that, and just like putting the banners together, putting everything together, I'm going to do it regardless. It's just going to take a little more time if I don't have help. But if I have help, I'll be able to knock it off sooner.
James, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for helping others and encouraging others to share your story. And I request one thing in this show: give thanks. Give thanks, because gratitude will help in the paying forward. And I challenge you to rise up. This is Rise Up Radio, SDRiseUp.com. Have a great weekend.